From the truth behind whether or not the silver-suited sharpshooter was actually classed as a Mandalorian, to those other well-known Star Wars personalities who were surprisingly influenced by the clone template. Here are some fascinating details you probably didn't know about Boba Fett's pops. Hi, I'm Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Jango Fett. Number 10. His son almost avenged his death. After witnessing his father have their head sliced off by a Jedi Master, more on that later, it was always pretty safe to assume that young Boba Fett would make it his lifelong mission to avenge his fallen pops in the years that followed. And while Boba would very much attempt to do that on a number of occasions during the Clone Wars animated series, he actually managed to go one better in a piece of concept art that was created in the lead up to Episode 3. In that Revenge of the Sith sketch, created by Warren Fu, which eventually appeared in the Star Wars Insider magazine, Boba is seen blasting Windu out of the sky as the Jedi Master seemingly attempts to take down a group of clone troopers nearby. However, said art was accompanied by a caption explaining that George Lucas stated definitively that Jango's son would have only been 16 at the time and therefore too young. And just like that, Boba finally avenging his father's death was chucked out in favour of Palpatine shocking the purple-bladed master out of a window instead. Number 9. His armour almost looked very different. Jango's iconic Beskar armour is up there as one of the coolest get-ups ever to land on the big screen. Boba would eventually change up the colour scheme a little, shifting away from the silver and blue seen during Attack of the Clones, and opting for a green look with the odd hints of red and gold. But there was actually a moment before Jango's Episode 2 debut when the armour looked entirely different to the version donned by the bounty hunter during his duels with the likes of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mace Windu. According to StarWars.com, Jango's suit was nearly white, exactly like the clone troopers that would be created thanks to his genetic template. Boba Fett's original design, created by visual effects art director Joe Johnston and concept artist Ralph McQuarrie, was similarly all white too. But Lucas soon decided that he wanted the armour to be painted up, with additional dents and scratches added to the suit that needed to look like it was made up of pieces picked up from different places. So we've twice been robbed of some undeniably gorgeous all-white bounty hunter threads. Now what do you think is the coolest costume / gear in Star Wars history? Let me know in the comment section down below. Number 8. He was disavowed by the new Mandalorians. And while on the subject of that iconic armour, that Beskar suit is synonymous with the world of Mandalore and the badass Mandalorians found kicking ass across the galaxy. As noted by his son during The Mandalorian Chapter 4, The Tragedy, Jango actually fought in the Mandalorian Civil Wars, with the eventual world-class bounty hunter being given his first set of Beskar armour during those battles. Said Mandalorian Civil Wars saw the more peaceful new Mandalorians fight with the traditional warrior clans over control of Mandalore. The former ended up coming out on top, and it was that side who eventually decided to disavow any connection to the warrior who seemingly must have been fighting against them during the wars. Prime Minister Almec even went as far as to say that this assassin for hire had just stolen an artifact to use for his bounty hunting life, that being his armour, and was in no way a Mandalorian. In the years that would follow this shunning from the new Mandalorians, Jango would go on to establish himself as the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy, of course, all with a little help from his apparently stolen Beskar gear. Number 7. He was born on Concord Dawn and was actually a foundling. Boba Fett's chat with Din Djarin in The Mandalorian also brought with it the revelation that his father was actually a foundling just like Mando. Similarly to the star of that Disney Plus show, Jango was found by a group of Mandalorians at a young age after tragedy struck his family. The future clone template was born on the planet Concord Dawn, a world half shattered to pieces thanks to many a war, and known for being the home of many elite Mandalorians, before being brought into the clan after his parents were murdered. Prime Minister Almec may have wanted you to think otherwise, but Jango was as much of a Mandalorian as any foundling adopted by the group over the years, being mentored by the legendary fighters and eventually rising to the rank of Commando heading into the Mandalorian Civil Wars. That all being said though, number 6, he's actually not a Mandalorian, or is he? George Lucas didn't actually class Jango Fett or his son as Mandalorians at all. That's according to Clone Wars supervising director Dave Filoni, who explained that the line in the animated show uttered by Prime Minister Almec that saw him claim that Fett was simply a common bounty hunter was put in due to Lucas being adamant that the Fetts were not Mandalorian. They were just assassins who opted to wear the famous Beskar armor. In Legends, however, Jango was very much classed as a member of the legendary clan, being mentored by one-time Mandalore Jasta Mariel. But Pablo Hidalgo of the Lucasfilm Story Group would also note on Twitter back in 2016 that despite certain databank entries about Z6 jetpacks suggesting they were, the Fett still were not classed as Mandalorian at that point in time. So in what seemed to be a clear attempt to settle this silly argument once and for all, Filoni and Jon Favreau went out of their way to finally cement Jango as an undisputed foundling in the canon during The Mandalorian. Number 5, Temuera Morrison also couldn't see a thing in a Star Wars helmet. It turns out that playing a Mandalorian killing machine all day is a rather strange job. I know, who knew? That's according to the face of many a clone and both Fett's himself, Temuera Morrison, who revealed during an interview with Disney back in 2017 that wearing Jango's suit led to some pretty surreal and sometimes difficult moments. Much like Luke Skywalker all those years before, or should that be after, the Jango actor also couldn't see a damn thing when donning a helmet in the Star Wars universe. And if that wasn't already enough to make the actor feel like a bit of an idiot as he attempted to not walk into any green screens, Morrison was also forced to act without any guns early on. Instead, he was told to simply point his fingers out like a kid play fighting with his pals in the playground. Even worse, Morrison couldn't really hear much when fully suited up either. So when Lucas and the gang called action on set, he could regularly be found just standing there not knowing what in the hell was going on. Thankfully though, the star did settle into the costume as time rolled by. Number 4, he actually helped design the training programs for clones. Not only was the deadly Hitman the template for the clones who would spend years fighting for the Galactic Republic during the Clone Wars, but Jango Fett also had a hand in teaching these soldiers how to fight on the battlefield. Each of the training programs the many clone troopers created on Kamino went through were created with input from the genetic template himself. But even though he was this heavily involved in their creation, that didn't necessarily mean Jango cared all that much about his many copies. In fact, Jango once went as far as to label the clone army as livestock who were bred to die like cannon fodder. And if you were wondering exactly how the world-class assassin ultimately became the clone chosen one, that all came about after Fett won a competition that was arranged by none other than Count Dooku. In the wake of that big win, Darth Tyrannus asked the bounty hunter if he fancied becoming the aforementioned genetic template, and after agreeing on a cool 20 million credit fee and being granted his request of an unaltered clone for himself, Jango was officially recruited. Number 3, his original name was Jimmy. On top of the dual pistol firing menace once being on the verge of making his debut in a suit of white armor, he was also very nearly not even called Jango at all. In early drafts of Attack of the Clones, Boba's daddy actually went by the name of Jimmy Fett, and it's still not known exactly why this particular name didn't make it out of the early development stages. Perhaps it just didn't sound cool enough for a bloke capable of dispatching a Jedi Master with nothing more than a few well-placed blaster shots. When it comes to the Jango name eventually decided on, that was actually thought to be a reference to the violent titular drifter in the 1966 movie Django, the same film that ultimately inspired Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained too. And looking back, opting to name the sharpshooting badass after an equally vicious gunslinger was certainly the right call. Number 2, he was once Cad Bane's mentor. A figure who would mentor and eventually clash with the next generation of Fett, also once called themselves an apprentice of Jango. Long before he was seen dueling and holding his own with some of the most powerful Jedi of the Republic era, Cad Bane was actually taught a few things by the future clone template in his younger years. Bane even ended up owing the best bounty hunter in the galaxy a number of favors, though the cold-hearted assassin wasn't actually able to pay them back before Fett's death at the hands of Mace Windu. It was that demise that led to Bane soon being considered the new best in the business when it came to all things bounty hunting. And as a way of repaying those aforementioned favors to the no longer with us Jango, Bane actually began mentoring Boba in the ways of killing for a fee in the coming years. The pair didn't exactly get on during the Son of Jango's training, however, and it was Boba who ultimately killed his rather abusive former teacher during the closing stages of the Book of Boba Fett. Number 1, the truth about his death. The beheading of Jango Fett during the first battle of Geonosis had quite the knock-on effect on many things and figures within the Skywalker saga. And there's actually more to that savage killing itself than what initially meets the eye, with shadows revealing that Jango's head actually flew out of his helmet in the immediate aftermath of Mace Windu's lightsaber swing. Nice. This list has already noted how Boba witnessing that horrendous act of violence nudged him down the path to becoming an equally renowned bounty hunter. But did you know that Jango's death also had quite the impact on the clones too? This new lack of Jango meant that the Kaminoans now had to conserve the Fett genome they had left in order to continue pumping out new troopers. This inevitably resulted in the next batches becoming less efficient, and the Kaminoans even once suggesting that the Jedi Order should search the galaxy for a new soul to act as another template for their army. With one rather smooth backhand, Windu single-handedly ruined a kid's life, created another soon-to-be deadly assassin, and shot his own Republic in the foot. Impressive. And it's worth noting that those less efficient clones were still more than capable of taking down the majority of the Jedi Order in the end. And that's our list. Know of any other things that folks don't know about Jango Fett? Well, let me know about them in the comments section right down below, and don't forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. I've been Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. Cheers for watching this video today. Now go and check out some more What Culture Star Wars goodness on the channel, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye bye!